system class is basically it is a component or a system that allows an entity or a person to process information. And this information is particularly accounting and financial data. The processing of information is intended basically to help decision makers, okay, to make their decision. And it follows a most common definition of accounting. So in an accounting information system, it basically starts with the data. And this data is being processed by the system and transform this data into information. So it begins with a certain transaction. And a transaction, as defined in your screen, if you can see your screen, is an agreement between two entities to exchange goods or services. Another definition of transaction, which I find, to my mind, is more appropriate, is any other event that can be measured in economic terms by an organization. When you say that it can be measured by economic terms, it means that this particular transaction can be measured by pecuniary value. Pag sinabi mong pecuniary value, it has a currency equivalent. It is measured by money or cash or monetary value. Kasi pag hindi mo na-limit ang definition ng transaction to an economic term or monetary value or pecuniary value, then all other events can be considered as a transaction. As a distinction, for example, there is a memorandum of agreement entered into by the company with another company. And that memorandum of agreement is a mere cooperation between two entities to promote certain advocacy or certain projects. Say, for example, environmental projects, or say environmental conservation, for example, kasi nga part ng corporate social responsibility or CSR ng company. This particular memorandum of agreement, can this be considered transaction? I don't think so. Kasi that memorandum of agreement does not translate into an economic term or monetary value. Except, of course, if you're already accounting for, say, the expenditure you used in order to materialize the economic project or the environmental project. But let's say, for example, you acquired something, you purchased, say, for example, say vehicles that can be used by your team to promote the economic project. The purchase of those vehicles now represents an outflow of your cash. And of course, at the receipt of an asset, which is your new vehicles, a depreciable asset at that. And because there is already an economic value, monetary value in that particular event, which is the acquisition of vehicles, dalawa yan, may outflow ng cash at may receipt ng new asset. Therefore, that particular event can be considered as a transaction. Okay? So yun yung kaibahan ng other events. So to my mind, the best definition of transaction really is the second definition. But of course, most transactions naman na may economic terms or monetary value necessitates an exchange of goods or services. Or basically, you receive something and you part ways of something in exchange for that one. You know, the law of equivalent exchange, really. Now, when the particular transaction, meron yun siyang different components, we call data. And then these will enter into the system, and then they will be processed. And the end point of this processing, we call it the transaction processing. The product, when this particular data is processed, we call it the information or an information. And information is a data that have been organized and processed to provide meaning and improve decision making. So how do we make sense of this statement that an information is already a processed one that gives meaning to data? Let's proceed to the second slide. Pag sinabi mo kasing data class, these are facts that are collected, recorded, stored, and processed by an information system. And if you look into the examples of data, this could be the sale date, the customer name, the amount, the quantity, the unit price, the total amount, the discounts, for example. The data here we're talking about are what we call parts of a particular transaction. And if you don't process them or you don't arrange them in a logical manner, it will not make sense. What will you do with the date? What will you do with the quantity? What will you do with the unit price? Doesn't make sense, right? But if you arrange them in a logical manner, that you input them in a chronological manner, that in a particular date, the related quantity sold to a customer, you put them in a single document, then it all makes sense that you actually sold to this customer this number of quantities for a unit price and for this total amount, subject to the discount or repayment terms on this particular date, and therefore it becomes an information, right? So that is processing. When you arrange them in a logical manner, that's the processing of data. And when these data are now arranged in a logical manner, gives now meaning to it, it becomes information. So the system that processes this data is actually a set of two or more interrelated components that interact to achieve a goal. So an accounting information system is comprised of different parts, and we call them as subsystems that support the larger, much larger accounting information system. But note, class, that if you look into these different parts, they are actually systems by themselves. And they only become subsystem because you actually look into the macro level, which they support a much larger system. But if you go micro and you go into the details, these subsystems are systems by themselves that are comprised of different systems as well. And they become subsystems to a much larger one. So it's basically, you consider the system or subsystem based on your perspective. Now, it is a key component to call it a system when the different parts are designed to achieve one or more organizational goals. In an accounting information system, your goal really is to provide timely accounting information, balances of your ledger, and of course, your monthly financial statements and your annual financial statements are comprised of your statement of, I still call it income statement, and your cash flow, and all other reports that will be prepared at certain period end. So that's the goal. And these parts, each of these subsystem actually supports that main goal. So for example, if you go to the purchasing system basically captures all your expenditures, okay, all the amount, all the expenses that you've actually incurred for that period, and that's interconnected whether on your accounts payable or your cash balances, because sometimes expenses could be on a cash basis or on account, depends. But if you notice, the purchasing system itself is a system, but it supports the entire overall accounting information system with respect to its goal of presenting to you or delivering updated or timely financial statements. Now, we also have a term called business process, which is a set of related, coordinated, and structured activities and tasks that are performed by a person, a computer, or a machine. What can we infer from this particular statement? That an accounting information system, class, is not limited to an automated system. Kasi ang first impression natin, it's because AIS, and we're also partnering with the SAP, or this is supposed to be a laboratory work. An accounting information system is limited to an automated one. No, an accounting information system is actually, it refers, to the entire system of accounting, your transactions, recording your transactions, and at the end of the day, getting now the balances that will aid you in making your economic decisions. So recording now in your journals is an accounting information system. Maintaining your manual ledgers in accounting information system. You transform these manual recordings into an automated one. It is still an accounting information system, albeit the fact that it's already automated, and of course, with less human intervention. Because the human intervention for an automated accounting information system is now limited only, I think, to the input part, which is you input the transactions. Other than that, everything will be automated, like say, presenting you the total for the month, presenting you the total for the year, making a monthly comparison of your income, like side by side. It's all automated now. As far as I could remember, I only encountered human intervention with respect to the input, which is recording now the transactions on a chronological manner, and of course the bank reconciliation statements. Because sometimes you definitely have to you definitely have to make sure that there's a human intervention, kasi the bank reconciliation statement naman requires, you know, critical thinking. So ibibigay lang ng bank yung correct or bank naman ng system, ang correct books ang book balances, and then you upload now the bank balance. But ikaw pa rin na magre-reconcile if may mga discrepancy or changes. Right? All right, let's continue with the next part. Now, in our accounting information system, we're actually divided into 5 major business processes. And we call these 5 major business processes as transaction cycles. The first major process is the revenue cycle. This is where we capture a revenue. It basically involves the sale of goods and services for cash or for account. The next major process would be the expenditure cycle, which is the purchase now, which basically records all your expenditures. But the focus normally will be to the purchase of inventory for resale if you are in a merchandising business, or raw materials for production for cash or payables. Third will be the production or conversion cycle. Related doon sa raw materials purchased under the expenditure cycle, you receive from this expenditure cycle the raw materials that will be converted or transformed into the finished goods. The fourth major process basically is an expenditure one, which is the human resources or payroll cycle. It involves the hiring, training, compensating, evaluating, promoting, and terminating of employees. Basically, you're spending here, you're paying staff, you're buying their services or their labor. But this is separated from the expenditure cycle. It's because it is a specialized expenditure. Specialized in the sense that the human resources involves a regular payout, which is on the 15th or the 30th or whatever day would it be, depending on the company. Some company would pay on the 1st or the 16th of the month, depende sa cut-off. All right? Okay. For human resources, I've said it's regular, and at the same time, it's already expected. It's not some random transaction that you purchase this, purchase that. It's expected. It will come. Also, there are certain specialized computations involving now, say, withholding taxes, the deductions of benefits such as SSS, PhilHealth, and the Home Mutual Development Fund or the Pag-ibig. So these computations deviate now from the normal recording of other expenditures, and that's why the human resources, the payroll cycle, is separated from the rest of the expenditure cycle. And the fifth one is the financing cycle, which refers to the manner how the company seeks financing for its operations, for its expansion, or for its other projects. It may involve equity financing, which involves the selling of company shares, or basically diluting now the ownership of the current owners of the business in favor of funding from other potential investors. Or if you don't want to dilute your ownership, you basically do debt financing, which is borrowing of money. Sometimes, usually it would be a borrowing from the bank. Okay? So in these two forms of financing, when you do equity financing, the new shareholders will be receiving dividends, or the new investors will probably expect a return for their investment. And if you borrow money from the bank, you're automatically, or you're expected to incur finance costs, which is the interest expense of the loans that you have availed from these bank or financial institutions. So note na, ito yung 5 major business processes natin. At if you go to your OIDP, these 5 major business processes actually comprise the different chapters of our topics for accounting information system. Dito nakafocus ngayon sa ating mga major business processes. Right? Now, let's check the diagram for this major business processes. All right. So if you notice, class, that every major process or transaction cycle, they all congregate or end up in the general ledger and reporting system, because basically it captures all the transactions, and definitely this will produce the balances that will reflect in your financial statements. But in a normal business process, class, you definitely start with expenditure and financing, especially financing, because this will provide now cash and how we'll start the business. So in the financing cycle, you'll see that some of the funds accumulated probably from debt financing or from equity financing, which is from other investors, this cash or funds now will help support the expenditure. In the expenditure cycle, you'll notice that you'll acquire in goods or finished goods or inventory for your merchandising business, and these goods will now be forwarded to the revenue cycle if they will be sold. Note that in for raw materials, the arrow goes to production cycle because you don't sell the raw materials. They form part of the finished products that will be produced by the production cycle. And if you notice from the production cycle, class, once the goods are finished or manufactured already, the finished goods goes to the revenue cycle ready to be sold to your customers. So basically, dalawa yan. The finished goods from manufacturing still to be sold, and the existing inventory or finished goods that are to be sold as well, right? Merchandising type of business. Now, for the production cycle, you notice that there is an arrow coming from human resources, because this will include the job sheet, the time sheet, and other computation of payroll, especially for those staff or employees that belong to the manufacturing sector, and these are considered to be part of the direct labor. And of course, the raw materials that has been transferred from the expenditure cycle will comprise of raw materials, and together with overhead, they will comprise the cost of goods manufactured. Right? And then once the revenue cycle will yield earnings from sale, the funds now will be forwarded to the financing cycle, because these will now will form part of the cash balance or the cash holdings of the entity. Now, for the human resource payroll cycle, you notice that it gets funds from the financing cycle, because obviously you'll be paying out people for their salary on the regular basis, right? So that's basically a simple diagram of the interrelationship of these major business processes as a component of an accounting information system. All right. Now let's proceed to accounting information systems at brief. Okay. It has been said that accounting is the language of business. If that is the case, then an accounting information system is the intelligence of that language. It means that because, you know, accounting is considered to be the language of business, that we actually understood each other by discussing these figures, by doing business, and we actually determine the health and the condition or the performance of these businesses because of their accounting records, financial statements that we actually check and scrutinize. But if you'll notice that we were having this language, we understood each other, but the intelligence behind this language, meaning the nitty-gritty behind this language, how this language was able to provide us the understanding, is actually an accounting information system. Otherwise, this will just be gibberish. Otherwise, this will just be random figures. But because of accounting information system, we were able to create this particular complex language that we all understand in the business world. And I think it's also high time that as an accounting students or accountancy students, you also have to understand an accounting information system out from the perspective of actually computing or answering problems. Because sometimes answering problems in your accounting subjects will only give you like a myopic view, because you're certain topic, certain subject, and this is the transaction that we have to compute for this particular say grading period. But allowing you to understand that in a much bigger context, then you'll be able to appreciate accounting more. And I think it's only relevant that we also understand the intelligence behind accounting. And that's why you have your accounting information system as a subject. Before, I don't really understand the subject, but when I was immersed at work, and you go in the real world, you'll be able to appreciate the concepts that you'll encounter here in accounting information system, especially the segregation of duties and how the duplication of documents in the manual setup are actually being done. What is the wisdom behind it? Why are we preparing so much documents? Like say, bakit apat na copies ito? You understand that one in accounting information system. Of course, wala nang duplication pag automated because it's a matter of access na lang. You'll give access to those people who are intended to receive a copy of that one copy of the document. Para sa automated setup, wala ka nang kailangang i-prepare ulit or another copy. So basically, the copy that you've originally created will just be accessed by those individuals entitled to view or to receive a copy of that particular document. Now, accounting information system, you notice that accounting is defined here as a data identification, collection, and storage process, as well as an information development, measurement, and communication process. By definition, accounting is an accounting system since it collects, it records, it stores, and processes accounting and other data to produce information for decision makers. Okay, irrespective of whether that will be manual or that will be automated, accounting is an information system, right? Now, let's check now the 6 components of an accounting information system. What are these 6 components? The first component will be the people. They are the users of the system. And in this particular era where technology is fast changing, thankfully, the present technology has not eradicated totally the presence of human beings, of people. But in this perspective as a component, the people here that we're talking about are the end users of the system. The users, basically those who will process it in the input side, and also those end users that will use the system to generate the information, the necessary documents, the necessary statements that they needed at end period to formulate their decisions and to anchor their decisions in a much concrete basis rather than by hunch or by guess. Because if you have your accounting information at your end and you're about to make a decision, figures don't lie and figures do actually serve as your foundation to make that decision or to strengthen your resolve to make that decision. Otherwise, you'll just be like a blind person trying to navigate a world with uncertainties. But I'm not saying that to demean blind people, right? It's just metaphorical. Now the second one would be procedures and instructions. In an accounting information system, whether manual or automated, it actually involves procedures and instructions. It involves certain rules that have to be followed. In fact, in a manual setup, you're actually following an ancient rule, a medieval one, which is the double entry method, right? That is still a rule. That is still an instruction. In an accounting information system that is automated, it will involve computer program, but as anchored on a traditional or much classical accounting process or accounting recording. The procedures and instructions are intended to collect, to process, and to store data. And the third component will be the data itself, which is about the organization and its business activities. The fourth component will be the software, which is to utilize which is utilized now to process the data. And of course, we also have the information technology or the IT infrastructure. This is for the automated ones, which will be comprised of computers, peripheral devices, and network communications that will be used in an automated accounting information system. And 6 will be the internal controls and security measures. You'll discuss thoroughly internal controls in your auditing theory. I'm not sure what's the name of that subject now, but in your audit theory, it will be comprised of a lot of discussions on internal controls, because internal controls do make sure that your accounting information is protected from unscrupulous individuals who would like to do anomalies. So you also protect the entry of wrong information into your system, and these will be addressed by your internal controls, which are basically preventive in nature, and security measures. Again, internal controls and security measures will serve as safeguards of your accounting information system. Now, these components these 6 components enable 3 business functions. The business functions that in an accounting information system will be to collect and store data. That's the first one. Once you've collected the data, you store it. And second is to transform this data that has been stored into an information and to provide adequate controls to safeguard this data. We have what this term called WYSIWYG. GIGO pala, sorry. GIGO, an internet slang, GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out. So the adequate controls to safeguard data means that when there's absence of internal control, you allow now an input which is garbage and basically wrong and is not properly screened into your system. You don't expect that the output of your accounting information system will be any of high quality, because it is expected that garbage in, garbage out. What you inputted is garbage. You have to expect that the output will also be garbage. Okay? Now let's proceed to the major activities of the first transaction cycle, which is the revenue cycle. In the revenue cycle class, it all starts with the receipt and to answer customer inquiries. This is basically the start of the negotiation part of a contract of sale. It's not automatically that you enter the contract of sale. There is a negotiation part which basically allows the parties to express their desires. The buyer expressed its desire to acquire, to purchase these items, this particular quality of items for this particular unit price. And there is what we call a commitment to acquire these items for this total amount of money. Now, the seller now will receive this inquiry or receive this purchase order coming from the potential customer, and we call that one as a customer order or sales order in the revenue cycle perspective. Now, once it will be received by the seller, then they will have to reconsider the unit price and they will have to give their last price. And if it will be amenable to the buyer, then then there will be a meeting of minds, and that will now cement or conclude the negotiation part of the contract of sale. And once there are meeting of minds, there's already a contract. Kasi contract is a mere meeting of minds, diba? But obviously, there are also certain formalities that you have to comply if the amount of money is already quite high. Kasi hindi naman lahat unwritten contract. Wait. Okay, I'm back. My God, I'm busy today. Kasi ang daming pasensya na talaga. Ang daming renovation ngayon sa bahay. So, kasi my partner wants to build his own home gym. So, that's very important sa partner ko. So, ngayon, dadagdag kami ng home gym. Anyways, let's continue with the topic. So, now, you receive the customer orders and you enter them into the accounting information system. But take note, class, that the customer order does not result muna to the customer inquiry does not result muna to an accounting entry. But the moment there is already a commitment and it transforms into a sales order, that's the moment na meron ng entry na i-expect, right? Kasi pag customer inquiry, wala pa kasing commitment. You have to enter into a commitment before you translate this into an economic event na, may pecuniary value or economic value. So, yun, pag inquiry mo na, wala pa. Pero pag meron ng commitment, you enter it as a sales order. The sales order is entered basically, class, if you check into the diagram, after now checking the credit standing of your customer. Here, you disabuse your mind with the idea that the revenue cycle we're talking about is retail, yung sa mga malls, kasi ano, cash basis yan. But in a business perspective kasi, class, hindi naman kasi pupunta lang si customer at, ay, bibiling ko to. Diba? Hindi naman ganun yan. Kasi ang idea natin dito, this is a business transaction and therefore, this is by bulk. Okay? These are big accounts, big transactions. And therefore, you don't easily commit to a certain buyer without first doing a background check or a credit investigation to know that this particular buyer is capable of paying the orders. Because most of these transactions in a business perspective are not paid in cash, but they are on account. Kasi diba, malaki yan to eh. So there will be certain payment terms, like 50% upon order will have to pay and 50% upon delivery, may mga ganon. Or the usual payment terms that the entire contract will be paid 30 days. Ganon. Then of course, under the revenue cycle, you also have to check the inventory availability. Because you don't commit when the inventories are not enough. You check the inventory availability as well as the pending deliveries. Kasi sometimes the inventory level may not be sufficient, pero meron mga pending arrivals within the period, and then once they arrive, you can actually make good of this particular sale. Kasi parang kung ang delivery naman expected is within 20 days, and hindi enough yung inventory natin, but within 5 to 10 days, there are expected deliveries from our suppliers to replenish our current inventory, then we can actually make good of this particular order from our customers. And then once you've already approved or verified the credit standing and the inventory availability, then you also initiate back orders for goods out of stock. Kung meron mang commitment before, tas na out of stock, we call them as back orders. And then part of the revenue cycle as well is to pick and pack customer orders, because sometimes you have a massive warehouse, and then you pick and pack the orders of the customers. You remove the items from their storage, and then you pack them together with the other orders of a particular customer. There is one profession, class, we call them warehousing, which is basically a consulting job that teaches now businesses, especially the retail or the distribution companies, yung mga nag-distribute ng products. Hindi talaga sila retailer, but they distribute products of manufacturers to retailers. Meron yan sila mga certain controls, like for example, you don't go in and out, walang nag-in and out sa warehouse. They basically open the warehouse and close that one for a period of time. The packers are inside the warehouse, and they pick the items from the shelves, and then they pack them and group them together with the customer for the customer order. And then they allow them to go out and then close the warehouse para ang alam lang is yung lumabas na items is yung based doon sa ginroup ng mga pickers and packers for a customer order. Kasi kung i-allow mo ang warehouse mo to be open in and out, then wala kang control sa sino man ang kumuha ng items, and you basically will incur so much losses on inventory alone. And then once you've already packed the items per customer order, kasi class, pag may different customer order, tapos ang customer orders na yan are under the same customer, i-group mo yung mga customer orders na yan into a single accounts payable or a single sales order. Kasi isang person lang naman or isang entity, different lang yung customer orders, kasi ang nangyayari is umorder ulit, within the period na pwede mong i-serve sila, isahin mo na lang yung sales order na yan. And then once the sales order has been completed, na-comply mo lahat ng orders nila, then they're ready for shipment to your customers. Afterwards, you bill the customers based on the agreement na 50% upon delivery. Sometimes kasi delivered na siya upon receipt, upon arrival sa port or upon arrival sa shipper based on your agreement. Kung FOB, shipping point, depende yan. Kung FOB destination, upon notification that it's arrived in their destination, then you automatically bill the customer. Most ng mga exporters naman kasi, class, is 50% upon delivery to the shipper. Pag nabigay na sa shipper, kailangan nang magbayad or kailangan mo na magbayad ng 50% before nila i-deliver to the shipper yung items para may security din si seller. Right? Then of course, there will be an update on your sales transaction, especially on, say, returns, discounts, allowances, and bad debts. You also update your accounts receivable ledger, obviously, especially for sales on account. And then there will be preparation of management reports and sending appropriate information to other cycles. Especially the revenue cycle is related with other cycles. Like, say, for example, yung pagbenta na yan, yung total sales na yan will determine na the total sales tagged per salesperson or sales agent. And that will be important in determining now how much will be the commissions that the sales agents will receive for the month. And that is relevant for payroll cycle. And of course, yung pag nagbayad ang customer in cash, in the revenue cycle, you'll definitely forward it naman to the bank for depositing. And then, of course, the revenue cycle is being updated by the inventory level, both on the finished goods level and the inventory level for merchandising by the expenditure cycle and or the production cycle, right? Now, let's proceed to the expenditure cycle. In the expenditure cycle, it usually starts with the request by the different departments or the different divisions of the company for goods and services to be purchased. Sometimes this would include office supplies. This will include the necessary number of people required to hit the target. Like, say, kailangan namin ng additional manpower for the manufacturing concern kasi ang taas ng quota, ang taas ng kailangang tapusin within the month, and we may not be able to finish this on time. So lahat ng departments meron yung i-request, whether additional people or additional supplies, and this will now be in the form of a purchase requisition slip. This purchase requisition slip will include items that will be purchased, but sometimes the system kasi class or the company will already have a preferred vendor, meaning kasi may relationship na tayo sa vendor na to or sa supplier before, or this particular parang suppliers will be the lowest cost but of highest quality. So pag nangyari in class, kahit ano pang i-order, ano pang nasa purchase requisition slip, they will be grouped later on into purchase orders based on the vendor. Pag lahat ng orders na in class, same ng vendor, i-group yan siya into a single purchase order. Same as true with others. Kasi class, ang purchase order it will require now the name of the vendor, the date of the transaction, the items ordered. So lahat ng purchase orders na yan na ipe-prepare mo for the period, they will come from the purchase requisition slip, pero na-organize mo lang per vendor. Okay? And once the purchase orders now are prepared, they are sent now to your suppliers for their confirmation. Pag nag-confirm sa suppliers that the items are sufficient, at kaya nilang i-deliver ito, then you've actually completed already the purchase agreement. And then you basically wait for the delivery, and then you'll receive goods and services and then complete the receiving report. Note that the receiving report that you will be preparing upon receipt of these items, inventory, delivered by your supplier is basically a confirmation now that a copy of your sales order matches now the items received upon delivery. Kasi sometimes may kulang yan or sometimes sobra. So i-match mo yan siya or ibangga mo siya doon sa sales order or purchase order, I mean. Ngayon, yung purchase order na yan, pag nabangga mo at na-match mo or na-reconcile mo with the items received from the delivery ng yung supplier, then you prepare the receiving report. Okay? Then the items that have been acquired or purchased will be forwarded now to the warehouse for storage. And then, of course, there will be update on certain general ledger accounts, like accounts payable, if you've actually purchased an account. Okay? Now, this also involves payment of your suppliers, kasi hindi naman limited ang expenditure cycle and account, but this will also include the payment made to your supplier. And then, of course, the recording of your purchase returns, discounts, and allowances, the preparation of the management reports, and of course, sharing appropriate information with the other cycles. Now, the third one will be the human resource payroll cycle, which starts with the recruitment. And then upon recruitment, evaluation, whether the particular employee hired will graduate the 6-month probationary period and will be regularized. The evaluation will be on employee performance, and this evaluation standards the employee should have been apprised ahead of the evaluation. Meaning, if walang na-mention kay employee on the standards how will be apprised or evaluated, or there's no mention that may kailangang evaluation na gagawin, then there's already a presumption that that employee has been hired as a regularized employee. But of course, at standard practice, during your when you will be hired, it will be on a probationary period, and you will be apprised now of the different standards or metrics, or what we call the key performance indicators, for you to be judged or evaluated, and whether the company will keep you after 6 months. And that's what we call regularization. Now, for other firms, big four firms, it's quite common to be regularized, but nung katiolvidare sa PwC, hindi siya automatic. I've known several people, even like magna cum laude, na hindi na regularize. Because sometimes, class, it's not, sometimes academic performance may not be enough, or would not suffice for you to parang achieve the high ratings sa evaluation. Kasi magkaiba pa rin ang academic as well as delivering actual services, or mag-deliver ka ng yung expected of you as, you know, as an associate of a firm. So you really have to come out of your comfort zone or out of your shell when you actually work in the real world after school. Kasi you're no longer just be after grades, but you're out after the satisfaction of your clients, the belief or convincing your managers, your partners, that you deserve to be retained and that you can deliver future engagements. So may mga ganun pa na incidences na mag-google ka na lang, hala, hindi na regularize, and then obviously you don't tell naman people na, uy, si ganito, hindi na regularize. You just answer people later on na parang, no, she opted or he opted to transfer, parang ganun sa SGB. Kasi sa amin sa PwC sa Isalipan, medyo maliit lang ang number of staff. Pero mataas, medyo nakakaangat ang sahod, and then may profit sharing. So it's quite rewarding. Especially when I was already a lawyer under international tax. Ang OT pay ko sobra, like kasi minsan nagtatrabaho kami ng 'di ba, 16 hours, 12 hours a day, minsan straight week 'yan. Tapos mga a month yata ako hindi ako nagre-record ng OT pay. Tapos pag na-accumulate na, i-file ko na yung OT pay ko. And then ayun, pag pasok ng OT pay, hala, bilang bagong bottega, parang ganon, di ba? So ubos din ang pera mo after, but but then again, life is short, so whatever you have, enjoy it, di ba? Hindi ko naman dadalhin sa kabilang buhay yung pera, so might as well go shopping. Anyways, so that's human resource cycle. But they also include your maintenance of your attendance, checking your attendance, computation of your payroll for the cut-off, which includes now your deductions from absences, especially those absences that are covered by leave, the preparation of your payroll, preparation of pay slips, and then the disbursement of your payroll. And usually in big companies, class payroll usually includes bank transfer na lang. Like there will be a list now of employees with their bank accounts, and usually you are being asked to maintain a bank account with the same bank of the firm or the company you're working. And the company will just will send the bank days before the payroll the list of employees and their equivalent amount to be paid, together with their bank accounts and a letter of authority to debit. Meaning the total amount here will be debited from the account of the firm or the company. And then these deduction from the cash of the company will automatically be credited to the bank accounts of the list of employees per line item, meron yun siyang equivalent na salary ng employees. Right? Now, let's proceed to our production cycle. Wait lang, classmate. Tumatawag na naman. Client na naman ito. I'm back. Okay. Ano lang, sige. May mga ano pa ako retainers na replyan. Anyways, saan na ba ako? Okay. The production cycle, if you notice, may diagram yan, it starts with designing of products and then creating forecasts of the sales forecast for the month or for the year para ma-set na ninyo ang inyong magiging estimated items to be manufactured for the period. And then once there's already a forecast and a budget of how many items you're about to manufacture for this particular period, you will then request the raw materials that are needed. Basically, yung level ng raw materials niyo ngayon, kung ano na lang yung kulang niyan para ma-comply ninyo yung total requirement in order to manufacture the forecasted goods to be manufactured for the period. Yun yung i-request ninyo sa expenditure cycle. And then once na-deliver na yung raw materials, you start the manufacture of products. And then once finished, then you'll have to forward it to storage, usually the warehousing. And of course, the production cycle will definitely dwell on your costing of the items to be produced. And I think you are taking already cost accounting this semester. So that will be helpful as well to picture out now the production cycle, especially on the costing of your direct materials, direct labor, and then the overhead. And then, of course, preparation of management reports and sending appropriate information to other transaction cycles. All right? Now, matawag na naman ang client. Oh my God. What time ba tayo? 12:10, no? All right, sige. We'll call this a day, no? We'll call this a day. We'll continue next meeting our topic